All right, let's dive into this one. Eve, The Awakening. Looks like we've got a stack of YouTube reviews and even an audio review. You guys are serious about this book, so what's got everyone talking?
Well, it's one of those books you either love or hate.
Yeah, I saw that online. Some pretty strong opinions out there.
Definitely.
So set the stage for us. What's this book all about?
Okay, so imagine a world where humans have been genetically enhanced. They're called chimeras, and they've got these incredible powers.
Like superheroes?
Kind of, but they're not exactly welcomed with open arms. You know, there's this whole undercurrent of fear and prejudice against them. And to make matters worse, these terrifying alien creatures called interlopers have shown up.
Oh, this is starting to sound familiar. Classic sci-fi setup. So we've got these enhanced humans, the chimeras, facing off against an alien threat. But like you said, they're also dealing with prejudice from regular humans. That adds another layer of conflict, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes you think about how we react to things we don't understand, you know? The fear of the unknown, the other. That's a big theme in the book.
Definitely resonates with some real-world issues. Right?
For sure. But let's get to the heart of this book. Eve, our main character.
She's a chimera, right?
Yeah, and a powerful one. But her character seems to be a point of contention.
From the reviews you sent over, it seems like people either love her or hate her.
Exactly. Some reviewers call her a Mary Sue, too perfect, you know? But others find her really relatable.
She's got this strength, this power, but she also seems vulnerable.
Totally. She's caught between wanting a normal life and accepting these extraordinary abilities. It's a struggle a lot of us can relate to, even if we're not, you know, battling aliens.
So is she a strong female lead or just a whiny teenager? What do you think?
I can see both sides, honestly. There are moments when she's incredibly brave and resourceful, like that whole thing with the skateboard.
Escape.
Yeah, when she decides to sell her belongings instead of relying on her aunt, shows her independence, right?
Yeah.
But it could also be seen as reckless. It's like she's pushing everyone away.
Makes you wonder what she's running from or towards.
Exactly. And then we've got Billington University, this elite school where she ends up. Sounds idyllic, right? But things aren't always what they seem.
Oh, there's got to be a twist. What's going on at this university?
Well, for starters, it turns out there are interlopers hiding among the students.
No way. So it's not just about fighting aliens on a grand scale. It's personal, too.
Yeah, very much so. And it highlights that feeling of distrust, not knowing who to trust. It's like the university itself becomes this microcosm of the larger societal conflict.
Got it. We've got chimeras dealing with prejudice, interlopers infiltrating their schools, and this young, powerful chimera, Eve, at the center of it all, trying to figure out where she belongs. Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. And things are about to get a lot more complicated, especially when Eve's powers start to manifest. We're talking like telekinetic battles in nightclubs, dodging diamond bullets, even a flamethrower backpack makes an appearance.
A flamethrower backpack. Wait, what?
Yeah, it's called the Dirtier Sanchez. It's quite the invention.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting. So we're moving from social commentary and teen angst to full-blown action movie territory.
Pretty much. Some reviewers loved it. They called it refreshing and entertaining. Others, not so much. They found it juvenile, unrealistic.
I can see that. It's a fine line, right? You're dealing with these serious themes of prejudice and fear, but then you've got these over-the-top action sequences.
Exactly. And that leads to one of the big questions about this book. Does it work? Is it ridiculous fun or just ridiculous?
We'll have to keep reading to find out. But before we do, let's talk about something that keeps popping up in these reviews. Tropes. From what I've gathered, this book is packed with them.
Oh yeah, all the classics are there. The chosen one with dead parents, the makeover scene, the goth nightclub, you name it.
So the question is, do these tropes enhance the story or detract from it?
That's what we'll be exploring next. It's a tricky thing, tropes. Sometimes they work, sometimes they feel tired. But in Eve, The Awakening, they're everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what some of the reviewers are wrestling with. Is it just lazy writing, or is the author doing something interesting with these familiar elements?
That's the million-dollar question, but before we get too deep into that, there's something else we need to talk about. The elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah.
The whole issue of chimera hate.
Right. I mean, it's pretty intense in this book. We're not just talking about a few offhand comments. It's full-on discrimination.
Yeah, the author doesn't shy away from it. Angry mobs, hate speech, even physical violence. It's brutal.
And it's not just coming from the normies, as they're called in the book.
Nope. Even within the chimera community, there's suspicion and fear, especially towards Eve, because her powers are so strong.
It's like this fear of the other, Whether it's aliens or people with different abilities, it's this deep-seated prejudice that's hard to shake.
And one reviewer even compared it to the civil rights movement, drawing parallels between the discrimination chimeras face and the struggles of marginalized groups throughout history.
That's a powerful comparison. And it makes you wonder how much of this is intentional on the author's part and how much is just reflecting the reality of prejudice in our own world.
Right. Is she making a statement, or is it just an unconscious bias creeping into the story?
It's hard to say for sure. But one thing that struck me as odd was the lack of any formal segregation between humans and chimeras.
Now that you mention it, yeah. If there's all this hate, why aren't there laws separating them?
Maybe it's a more subtle form of discrimination. Like instead of outright segregation, it's this underlying tension, this constant feeling of being judged and watched.
So it's less about physical separation and more about this pervasive atmosphere of fear and distrust. Exactly. And that can be even harder to fight against because it's not as obvious, it's insidious. But hey, enough about the heavy stuff. Let's talk about those epic battles.
Oh yeah, this book definitely doesn't skimp on the action. Some reviewers thought it was a bit much though, especially how easily the chimeras seem to take down those interlopers.
Well, it is a young adult novel. There's definitely an element of power fantasy there. But I also think the author tries to ground those battles in some kind of strategy.
Yeah, like when they figure out that everlasting diamonds are the key to defeating the interlopers. Suddenly, it's not just about brute force. They need to come up with a plan. And that's where things get really interesting.
Especially when Percy gets involved.
Oh yeah, Percy. His whole scheme to get his hands on those diamonds is pure comedy gold.
I know, right? Going undercover as Madison's boyfriend. Classic Percy.
That whole scene where he's describing their date,
yeah,
trying to avoid her advances while also searching for those diamonds, hilarious.
And then there's the dirtier Sanchez. You can't forget that.
The infamous flamethrower backpack. Now that's a weapon you don't see every day. Some reviewers loved it, thought it was genius. Others, not so much.
Yeah, it's definitely a statement piece. Kind of sums up the over-the-top nature of the book, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's like the author saying, we're not taking ourselves too seriously here. Have some fun.
Exactly. But it's not all explosions and one-liners. There are some surprisingly tender moments in the book, too.
For sure. Like that scene where Jason spends Christmas Eve by Eve's bedside, even though he's hurt. It's just not sweet. You see this real connection between them.
Right. And it reminds you that even amidst all this chaos and fighting, human connection is what matters.
Totally. But you know what else really got people talking? Eve's internal struggle with her powers.
Yeah. It's not easy being the most powerful chimera in the world, especially when you're just a teenager.
She's constantly questioning herself, wondering if she should use her abilities or hide them.
Because she's afraid of being rejected, right?
Yeah. It adds this whole other layer to her character. She's not just some invincible superhero. She's dealing with real insecurities and fears.
And that makes her relatable, even if we can't all, move things with our minds.
Right. It's that human element that makes her story so compelling. But wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. Alien invasions, diamond panties, flamethrower backpacks.
And we haven't even talked about Percy's fashion sense.
Oh, we can't forget about that. He's the breakout star of this book for a reason.
Absolutely. But I think it's time we wrap things up and get to the final verdict on Eve, the awakening. It's a lot, right? But it all comes together, surprisingly.
Yeah, it does. And I think one of the things that makes this book work is that it's not afraid to have those quieter moments. The ones that really tug at your heartstrings.
Oh, absolutely. Like when Eve's injured and Jason's right there with her. It's Christmas Eve and he's totally exhausted, but he doesn't leave her side.
Yeah. It's like amidst all the craziness, you get this glimpse of their genuine connection, and it makes all the difference.
Definitely. And speaking of connections, we can't end this deep dive without talking about the character everyone's obsessed with, Percy.
Oh, Percy, the breakout star, the fashion icon, the weapons expert.
I mean, one reviewer even said he deserves his own spin-off series.
I can see it.
Yeah.
So what is it about him that makes him so appealing?
Well, on the surface, he's hilarious. He's always got a witty remark.
Yeah, he's the comic relief, for sure. But there's more to him than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's fiercely loyal to Eve, and he's surprisingly capable in a crisis. Remember that time he casually pulled out a Glock? From his designer bag, no less.
And let's not forget when he shot that patrolman in the foot, just like that.
Percy doesn't mess around, but he does it all with this charm, this nonchalant attitude. It's impossible not to love him.
He's like the embodiment of the book's spirit, playful, rebellious.
Exactly. It's like he's saying, hey, it's okay to not take everything so seriously. Embrace your quirks. Be yourself.
And that's a powerful message, don't you think? Especially for young adults who are, still figuring things out.
Yeah, it's like Percy gives them permission to be different, to be weird, to be awesome.
So after spending all this time with Eve, The Awakening, and all these reviews, what's the final verdict? Is it a must-read or just a fun distraction?
I think it's more than just a distraction. It's a book that stays with you. It's messy, yeah, and over the top, but it makes you think.
Yeah, you're not just along for the ride. It asks some tough questions about identity, about prejudice, about what it means to belong.
And it doesn't give you any easy answers. It leaves you with more questions than answers, honestly. But that's part of what makes it so good.
So we've got alien invasions, we've got diamond-encrusted everything, we've got Percy being Percy. It's a wild ride.
It is, but it's a ride worth taking.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a book that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, Eve, The Awakening, might just be what you need. And who knows, maybe it'll even inspire you to embrace your inner chimera.
Or at least invest in a good flamethrower backpack.
Maybe not. But definitely check out the book. Until our next deep dive, stay curious, everyone.